Hello and welcome to another episode of Legion by the Numbers. My name's Joe Eames, and in this episode, we're going to be answering the question as to whether or not you should take the Clone Commander upgrade with your Phase 2 Clone Troopers. We're going to look at two scenarios. We're going to look at the Z6, and we're going to look at the Mortar. Now, if you watched the previous video on the Phase 1s, you can probably guess that it's going to look like, or it's likely that it's going to make sense on the Z6, but doesn't make sense on the mortars. So let's go through and look at those two scenarios. Now, before we get into it, of course, I want to mention, be sure to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and leave a comment. It really helps me out. Love to hear what you think of the videos, and if there's anything else you'd like me to do, or if there's any scenarios that you would like to cover, anything else in this episode you'd like me to cover. And of course, if I got anything wrong, love to hear that as well. So let's start off with the simpler one, the Z6, because that's probably going to turn out like the previous video, that it makes sense to do the Z6. So give our Phase 2 troopers a Z6. We're going to go with the Clone Commander upgrade. And as before, he gives you Inspire 1, which it's really hard to quantify the value of Inspire 1. On Phase 2s, it matters a little less. They have 2 morale. So they're less likely to be suppressed, less likely to panic. Well, maybe not panic because it's mostly going to be your commander, but less likely to be suppressed than your Phase 1s. And then you get the reliable one out of them. So we're going to look at this. First, let's do with just the regular old Phase 1 Clone Trooper. We don't really have the specialists the way the Phase 1s did. So our baseline is the Phase 2 Clone Trooper. Obviously, offensive push and targeting scopes, that's going to be your typical. You can get rid of offensive push, but having those aims is really important on your Z6 troopers, so we're going to leave that on there. That leaves us 110 points with 5 black, 6 white. We have the Precise 1. Almost always we've got an aim. And we don't have a surge token, or we have the 1 surge token, because of they are Phase 2s and they have reliable 1. So we're going to go against red. No surge, heavy cover is kind of our default unit. Doing 2 points, 53, an efficiency of 53 points per hit. Now let's switch that Clone Trooper over to the Clone Commander upgrade, which gives us reliable 1, which nets out at reliable 2. So the difference is it's 117 points, and we would have 2 surge tokens available to us. If we look at this, we actually see that the damage goes up and the efficiency actually goes up just a little bit. It's just slightly more efficient. The mischance didn't really change much. You're still probably never going to blink out on this, but having a red save unit actually save everything, only 1 out of 10 times is that going to happen with one of these units. And the great thing about this is, so not only does the efficiency go down a little bit, but if you don't need that surge token on an attack, you have it for defense. Or if you get attacked before you make the attack and you get shot, you've got that surge token to spend on your defense. And as we saw before, in general, surge tokens are actually more effective for defense than dodge tokens are. So seems pretty straightforward that if you have the points, if you're not like points constrained, and there's reasons, of course, to try to have smaller units to have more activations. But if you have the points with the Z6 Phase 2, you should be taking the Clone Commander upgrade. Now let's switch this over to the Phase 2 Mortar. In that case, offensive push is still potentially a good idea. Targeting scopes, though, we don't need the targeting scopes on them. You might instead go with something like Recon Intel to get them a little bit closer and put them into range 4 a little bit faster. You could also, instead of offensive push, do something else, situational awareness maybe. You really wouldn't do Hunter. Endurance is something that you could see to just keep that suppression really off of you. Although with the Clone Commander upgrade, if you have a couple of those, they can pull suppression, helps pull that suppression off. So let's flip this over to our base unit, which is the Clone Command, just the Clone Trooper. We'll leave the offensive push in, 99 points. So for our Mortar, 99 points. It's 2 black with critical 1. We still have the reliable 1, so we're still going to keep 1 surge token. We lose the precise, we get the critical. 2 more black, that takes us up to 7, and we have 0 white. We're going to assume we have a name token. We'll keep that assumption there. Shooting at red with no surge to block and heavy cover. And that's doing 1.65 with an efficiency of 59 points per damage. Now, if we switch over to the Clone Commander Trooper, it takes the points up to 106. So the nice thing about Phase 2 is there's less of a difference between the cost of the regular Clone Trooper and the Clone Commander. And it gets us that second surge token. So at that point, if we look at it, the damage almost hasn't changed and the efficiency's actually gone down. So again, like we saw with the DC 15 on those Phase 1s, with the mortars, the Clone Commander doesn't make as much sense. Yeah, you can't quantify the value of reliable, and the difference in points is a little bit smaller. It's less than 10% of the total cost of the unit. So having reliable, having that second surge token so you maybe have 1 for defense and 1 for offense when you need them, because we saw that the additional surge really did very little difference, right? When you count for points, it really didn't change much. In fact, the damage really doesn't change anyway. With red and heavy, because of the critical, you want the critical. Your first surge is going to critical. The chance of getting multiple surges is low, and so you're already taking 2 of your surges and being able to turn those into 1 into a crit, 1 into a hit. Having a third surge, the chance of that is really, really, really low. So just not a big difference between having the extra surge tokens on that unit. And we can see it's just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of difference in damage. So for the mortar, a lot more questionable whether or not that Clone Commander is actually a good idea. If you really want a tough survivable unit, yeah, it makes sense, because now you got more surge tokens, more token sharing, more options to have surges for defenses, or on those key attacks when you actually need the surge. You could have 2 surges plus pull 1 from a nearby clone and have 3 available. You know, I'm sure you know that feeling when you roll a bunch of dice and you get 3 surge results and you don't have any surge on your unit. That really stinks. So definitely something to consider, but unlike the Z6, not nearly as obvious as a good choice. Hope you liked the video. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you in another episode.